Welcome back, everyone. Part 2 of our John Carpenter double header. Once again, Ali, thanks, mate, for putting this one on. They Live from 1988. Jared, before we get into any of that, though, let's do a little bit of up or down. Right? I've got two. Okay. First one is we've already talked about, but they dropped the second trailer for It the other day.
Yep.
It's a big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm in.
It looks like they've really, really done their homework on this.
Yeah, the latest trailer contained that bit with the TV.
Yeah.
Like they had the one with they extended the part with the film reel going, which is creepy as hell, but then they had the bit on the TV as well. Yeah. Where the kids shows on and they're singing. And
he's in the background,
He's in there singing too.
And then he actually speaks in that trailer as well.
Yeah. I actually think it looks better. The clown looks better.
Yeah.
And that's saying something because the original one was excellent. Yeah. And Pennywise was by far the best thing about the original.
And the thing about Pennywise, to think what I like about this one is, in the miniseries, Pennywise looked like a classic clown.
Yeah.
And then he just sort of, the teeth would change.
Yeah.
This looks...
just off.
Off, yeah. Slightly off. His teeth are all sort of bucky and crooked and all this sort of shit. It's really... I think they've really done their work here, and it's because they've done it in 2 films, it's going to be spread with plenty of time. Like they haven't sort of tried to cram it all into 2 hours.
Yeah. So I never actually read the book, so I don't think we can sort of comment on what they might be able to take from that.
It's 1,200 pages.
No, so I probably won't ever read the book. Sorry, Stephen. I've just got other things to do.
Sorry, mate. He's cashing checks and you're writing for him in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I am very much...
I'm excited by this. I'm actually really excited by it.
Yeah, I think it looks like they've really taken the care and the time to...
Well, it had been on the slate for a while, hadn't it?
Yeah.
It had been floating around for a number of years prior to this. Yeah, Will Poulter, and then there was another director,
Carrie
Fukunaga, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, was he involved in True Detective or something like that?
Yes.
And so he dropped out, and so it was a little bit up in the air, but it seems like they've got it right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a thumbs up for me.
Yep.
Now the other one was a Comic-Con teaser for Ready Player One.
Yep.
The new Steven Spielberg. I believe it's based on a novel.
Yeah.
And it has sci-fi adventure sort of tone to it.
Yeah.
I thought the trailer looked really good. And it's good to see Spielberg back in that wheelhouse where he sort of made his name.
And it's got this element of that it's picking little influences and Easter eggs from his time.
Yeah.
Basically.
None of his films, I believe they've said.
No, I don't think anywhere in there, but definitely in that same sort of wheel. I mean, in the trailer, you can see things like Deadpool and Harley Quinn and Freddy Krueger and Tron, the DeLorean. Yeah, so they've really
I believe it's got a lot of those sort of, pop culture references in that novel.
I've actually had the novel for about 18 months, and I haven't read it yet. I've got other things to do. I'm finishing Suicide Squad as we speak. Yeah, look, the novel was extremely well regarded. I just kept hearing about it over and over and over, and then I, went from reviews to people that I knew that had read it that just said it's friggin' awesome. So I picked it up, and it's in the pile. Hopefully, when I remove Suicide Squad from the top of the list, that one might slot in there before the movie comes out.
How is Suicide Squad the novel? Just off on a slight tangent.
It's actually a lot better,
because it makes sense.
It does. In the book, you can sort of go into what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And the relationship between Flag and Deadshot is central and is really fleshed out. About that Flag can't accept that these guys are in on the game, and Deadshot's constantly telling him, you and I are no different. I just do it for money, you do it for... basically it's this relationship, this back and forth that really works. And I think in the movie it may have been rushed a little bit to accommodate more characters. Like Captain Boomerang, for example, is used like he was in the movie, just for a few laughs here and there, which works really well. But I think they might have tried to jam a couple in there that maybe didn't work so well. I think in the book, Harley is more of a side deal as well, and that works better. But
because she was front and center in the movie.
Yeah, and that was always going to be the case. The Joker's barely in it.
Yeah, well,
had like one scene.
Yeah, I think that was.
And there was an intro to how Cara Delevingne came across the Enchantress.
Yeah,
it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's less jiggling too.
That's sort of belly dancing or whatever you want to call it.
But it's definitely. I probably enjoyed the book more. So.
Okay. All right, let's take a break. Here's the trailer for They Live.
Our masters!
What do these things want, and why are they here?
You still don't get it, do you, boy?
They have recruited the rich and the powerful.
They're running the whole show.
Wake up! They're all about you, all around you. Blinded us to the truth.
Take a look. They are safe as long as they are not discovered.
I don't know what they are or where they came from, but we gotta stop them. Stay away from me. What these are? They have us. Look at them. They're everywhere. Our owners.
We have no other choice.
I don't like this one bit.
Leave it alone, man. It ain't none of my business. Ain't none of yours. We have been lulled into a trance.
Listen to what I'm saying to you. We're in trouble. The whole world's in trouble. Control us! You're sending some kind of signals out of TV sets.
I've got one that can see.
Mama don't like tattletale. Now we start spilling some blood. Let's go!
Push a button.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
They Live, 1988, written and directed by John Carpenter as well, from a short story titled 8 O'Clock in the Morning by Ray Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know anything about that.
No, neither did I.
It was also produced by Larry Franco, who produced a lot of Carpenter's films, I believe. It stars Roddy Piper as Nada, Keith David as Frank, and Meg Foster as Holly. The budget was $4 million, and the box office was $13 million. And, no surprise here, the character of Nada was originally written for Kurt Russell.
You can tell by the hairstyling. I think that's why Roddy was cast.
Yeah.
Had that ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. Moulay.
Yeah.
Moulay at the ready. I initially characterised this film as being kind of criminally underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel it's underrated, but not necessarily for the quality of the film. I think it's more for the actual ideas involved, which are ahead of their time, basically.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting stuff here. I think this is something Carpenter does a lot in these films in the early part of his career, was ask some questions of the audience.
Yeah.
And he asked some really interesting questions here. The problem that I have with this is it is cheap. It looks so cheap. I mean, it's cheaper than cheap.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting to look at the budget for Big Trouble, which was $25 million. Mm-hmm. 2 years later, he gets $4 million to make this. And it shows in a lot of ways.
Right.
Overall, though, I still enjoy it. It's a 3 out of 5 for me.
I'm going to go the other way a little bit.
Right.
I actually do think it's, as you said, criminally underrated. It's hard to argue with what you said about the ideas maybe being the reason behind that rather than necessarily the quality of the film. But I actually think in some ways its cheapness works in its favour. And I'm talking specifically about when he's looking through the glasses at some of those black and white billboards and magazines and stuff. That is actually a really effective visual.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they did it, whether it was like matte painting or something like that, but it does look, as you said, it looks cheap, but it's quite effective. The cheapness does show through occasionally on... I actually think the aliens look really cool, but when they start to talk and stuff, the cheapness shows through.
When you get up close to them, they look shit.
Yep.
When they're far away, it's... I think part of it, the cheapness is a movie like this was not going to get major money. Like, studios weren't going to cram to get a film like this out. No. And Carpenter didn't have the clout anymore, I'd say, in 1988, especially after the failure of Big Trouble.
Yeah.
You know, with a large budget, Big Trouble had failed. But also, I think maybe it slightly does work in its favour in the sense that those aliens kind of look like something out of a B movie in the 50s or the 60s.
They do. They look really good on that, as you said, that sort of first, like when he just looks at one and it's just sort of static. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as I said, I think that the cheapness kind of works in its favour in some ways. Piper actually did a fairly solid job, I thought. And they sort of wisely paired him up with Keith David, who's always great value. And here, in ripping Nick. Oh, absolutely ripping Nick. He looks great. When he's there rolling up the sleeves, and Jesus, he's cut.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I actually go with a 4.
4?
I think the reason is, like you said, the ideas are almost more relevant now than they were.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's still a message there that hits home.
And I think that's part of the reason why this movie still plays.
Yeah.
And it's still got cult status.
That and the bubblegum line.
Yeah, that's part of it. But it's still got cult status because no matter what we thought of it, the ideas still resonate.
Yeah, exactly.
Because today's society is even worse.
Yeah, it's one of those things that comes around. Like, it was relevant at the time, but yeah, it's
super relevant now. Yeah. I mean, it was all about Reagan and that administration back then, but
and I mean, there's things about media control and being fed whatever you want by the big corporation. What's Trump talking about now? He's railing about fake news.
Yeah, and look at your right wing. It depends upon the kind of news that gets put out in papers. It depends upon who owns it.
Exactly.
And which way they lean.
So it's totally relevant.
Yeah, it's very relevant.
Which is why probably I lean towards the 4.
I go straight into the fact that I love the fact that the opening credits kind of set the scene immediately.
Yeah. Yep.
We get Piper as the drifter, looking for a job.
On the train tracks.
Yeah.
Like, he's basically just, rolling around. It really sets this bleak tone from the outset.
The kind of like Occupy Melbourne setup of homeless people, or not homeless people, but people on doing it tough.
Yeah.
Looking for work and things like that.
Yep.
And then everywhere he goes in that first 5 minutes, people are sort of staring at the TV.
Yeah, yeah.
And just kind of... you can see they're in a trance. Like, the first person he sees is just staring through the window at a department store.
Yeah, it sort of sets this kind of paranoia and this kind of mob mainstream mentality right from the get-go before they're even talking about it or showing any of that stuff. Like you said.
And so I like that. He kind of sets that tone.
And all the TVs are on the same station and stuff.
It's always, it's 54. And it kind of gives the city a kind of like a dreamlike sort of feel, which I liked. And I think this is, again, something that really plays in Carpenter's favour. He's really good at that.
Yeah.
Like, really good at taking those little elements and just giving them to you.
Yep.
Roddy Piper's mullet.
Well, I was going to say Piper in general, but I suppose it deserves its own like.
We had him as a throwaway line in our Moulay Olympics.
Oh, mate.
The man, he may have been a one-off performer on film, but it rivals Russell.
It's stunning. And it's sort of, it's one of those ones, maybe it was the years of sort of wrestling that had conditioned it, but it doesn't sort of move when he gets in the stink. It's just, doesn't fall off about, it just sort of stays there. It's a solid, yet stunning mullet.
Yeah, it's got body, it's got height, it's got colour. It's bloody brilliant.
It is.
I mean, look, I don't think he would have won it, but he would have been a major contender.
He would have been in there, yeah.
I mean, he would have had trouble dealing with, the old Cobra, the Cobra style Gibson mullet. But he was a real contender, and we probably cut him a little short.
Yeah.
I believe it was Gibbo who...
Look, it was probably a little bit too much body.
I believe it was Gibbo who put his name in the ring briefly. Like we
brushed him.
We brushed him totally, and Gibbo just threw him in there. That Piper was somebody who might have had a mullet to look at.
Yeah, I think the deciding factor was, as I said, Piper's there was a lot of body, but Mel's had that kind of short up on top, but then it sort of just went berserk once you got below the ears,
I mean, his was a fucking party that went on forever.
Yeah, his was like, it was business up front and then a fucking festival out the back. Everyone's on pinging, dancing around.
Yeah. I see the guys with whistles and glow sticks. Magic. This is where I think the film is at its best. There's so much social commentary about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer and the lack of a middle class. And,
it's all class economy,
consumerism, and the fact that we basically are enslaved by advertising and all this sort of stuff. I said that it's even more relevant today. You think about clickbait. You get on the net and then there's a news story saying some shit that it kind of grabs you and you click on it. But it's being done for purposes. It's not a news story. It's just bullshit. Just wants you to get you to click.
$dollar and get to click on it.
So I really think it has relevance today.
Yeah.
More so than back then.
And the people that control the messages and things like that.
Really interesting shit.
It is.
And not mainstream filmmaking.
No.
Basically, that's why. I mean, it was reasonably successful if you looked at its budget to box office.
Yeah, made some back. So.
But it wasn't going to sort of be the sort of thing you'd see in the mainstream cinemas.
No.
So it's really good that it's kind of found a life on video and on DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah. And I mean, it's even found a life beyond that. People who'd never seen this movie would be able to tell you about the Obey shirts and things like that. Get around.
I feel that the film has kind of almost like a Western vibe. It's got the vibe of a Western. The whole idea of the downtrodden and oppressed people rising up against the bad guys. The lone hero coming into town. The music even has a slight tinge of Western. Yeah. The Western soundtrack.
Yep.
So I really like the fact that it's got that in it. It's another interesting take. Very similar to Big Trouble, which took the idea of the sidekick being the main character in the hero. He's not the hero, but he's the main star of this.
Yeah.
Then to move on to They Live and take an approach of maybe going a different genre with a movie set in present day or in the 80s. I like that.
Yep.
And that's something that's...
It's funny that you mentioned the music, because I think the score is actually really underrated for Carpenter. It's a very, very good one. Definitely there's scenes where there's a lot of time when it's just Piper walking around or looking at something. There's not a lot of dialogue, but this, you've got that pulsing score in the background that's kind of upping the paranoia, and it's actually really, really good. It doesn't have those notes that just play over and over in your head like Halloween, but it definitely does a very good job of
and look, Carpenter has got some really rock solid scores.
He does.
Amongst his career, and there's no surprise that something like Stranger Things, set in the 1980s, has taken that style.
No, you couldn't really do much better.
Yeah, so it's really, really good. And just going back to what I was saying about the Western vibe, I think that's part of what makes him a good filmmaker, or did make him a good. He was well regarded in that period, that he was actually taking some chances on plots and stories that maybe weren't what you would have expected.
No.
And he's making them work in a lot of these cases.
Quite a few times. I think you've actually, you gave Piper's hair its due.
Yeah.
But the man himself is actually quite good.
He is. Surprisingly, because I didn't really remember his performance.
No, I mean, it could have gone down the Hulk Hogan route. That's the
Thunder in Paradise.
Well, maybe not quite that far down.
You missed the Thunder, mate.
Maybe it would have taken a left turn before it got to Thunder Boulevard.
Wasn't Roddy in Thunder?
I don't think so.
In the background, no, it was Brutus the Barber. Sorry, I'm getting my wrestlers mixed up.
Wrestlers mixed up, mate. But Piper was always known as a bloke who could cut a promo.
Yeah.
And Carpenter himself actually said he was very good and full of charisma, but I just had to sort of channel that into acting rather than just sort of what he was used to with the wrestling.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to mistake him for a Juilliard grad or
No.
Shakespeare in the Park or anything like that. Like but he's got charisma.
Yeah.
He's got something
Screen
there.
presence.
Yes, and Keith David as well. He's just oozing screen
Well,
presence.
the thing is, David's a solid character actor, good solid actor, and it's a good idea to put a newbie like Piper with a good actor.
He definitely pull off the working class vibe that he was.
Definitely. I mean, I know most working class heroes back in the 80s had mullahs that could you basically get you airborne.
Yeah. Working class man would have done well over the top of his first day at work. Brushing the sweat off the face and a little bit extra tan on there.
I actually like the fact that they hold back on the sunglasses till 35 minutes in. Like, you haven't got the understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's nice that they actually hold that back. You're kind of getting an inkling something's not right.
Yeah.
But they don't actually deliver it to
Like
you
until...
said,
it's set up from the get-go that something's not quite right, but you don't know what.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get there, you know.
I
I had no idea. The first time I watched it, I knew kind of what was coming from just being exposed to Carpenter. I was a fan of the bloke, but I hadn't seen this one. But I kind of knew the images from it and that sort of thing. But I still was kind of, when the sunglasses came out and that sort of, I was still a little bit, okay, so this is...
And I thought it was almost like a little twist that they sort of threw in.
Yep.
And it actually is... it's a nice, simple way of showing these things under the surface.
Yeah, because it is, at its heart, again, as you said, the social commentary is front and centre. The plot, again, is fairly straightforward, really, and it takes a long time to get there, and there's not a lot of exposition through talking. There's a lot of scenes, as I said. There's when Piper first gets the glasses on, there's about 10 minutes where he's got a couple of lines until he gets in the car with the woman. And it's just it's all quite effective.
And that whole sequence where he first gets the sunglasses and looks around is really, really effective.
It's excellent.
It's probably the best sequence in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's still got that paranoia. You don't really know what's happening, and neither does he. And you're seeing these weird-looking dudes and these signs saying obey and all this sort of shit. But where does it fit in?
Where's it coming from?
Yeah, where does it fit in? And so I like that. It just kind of keeps you on your toes, basically.
Yep.
I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Classic.
Yeah, it's a nice line.
I wonder if he ad-libbed it, because that sounds like the sort of shit you would pull out in a wrestling promo.
It might have been an ad-lib, but it works. It really works for that sort of sequence. I don't like his aim.
No.
I mean, he's only seeing a handful of those aliens, yet he's firing shotgun fucking pellets everywhere. But I do like the way he sort of rocks in with all arms to the teeth, and he just rolls out that line.
Yeah,
it works well. The fight in the alley.
Oh, yeah. So you said that other one was the best scene of the film?
This is the best scene of the film, my apologies.
Was, but this is right up there.
There is just a couple of absolutely brilliant bits in this fight.
You know, the thing goes for 5 minutes,
I know.
start to finish. And
nobody takes that kind of hiding.
They are just belting the shit out of each other.
Keith David knocks him on his ass.
Yeah.
And then he offers him a hand.
Yeah.
And he picks him up and he just fucking decks him again.
And I think it's just after that Piper goes for the crackers, and you hear Keith David quickly, dirty motherfucker, and it's just starts pounding on him again. And they're just, the thing I liked about it is it is over the top, because as you said, no one can take that punishment, but it's just short bursts. It's not like a Stallone or an Arnie where they're just punching on. They actually hit the deck and sit there and go, got blood coming out and carrying on.
I think Piper drops a reverse suplex on him.
Yeah. I believe there's also biting. There's an eye gouge. I was waiting for the ref to come in. Hey, cut it out. You know.
We certainly know there's groin work.
There's groin work. Yes, there is.
I mean,
Roddy's pipe certainly does take a little bit.
Mate, that thing's fucking bent like bloody. It's like one of those fucking straws, you know. It's got the.
You felt possibly too much.
I mean, I could feel that in my own nuts.
Are you telling me it was a case of it was a little bit egregious with the knees to the neck?
He knees him 5 times straight.
It's just a combo. It's a good combo, mate. You got the upper hand or the upper knee, you unload.
Let me tell you something, mate. That is the absolute definition of balls for earrings. He His fucking nutsack would have been a bag of sand.
Yeah, because I think it was about sand, mate. It would have been like a little pouch of bloody water or something. It just been demolished. As you said, we took issue with Artie taking so much treatment to the knackers, but his was like a body of work. Piper gets it all in the space of about 10 seconds.
He would have been talking like one of the chipmunks. Jesus Christ! I was in absolute hysterics because he's also selling it with plenty of conviction.
Yeah, there's definitely wrestling sells on a few of the punches, the big sort of stunned look on his face. But then there's also the bit where he kind of giggles in the middle of the fight, like he's enjoying it, and then also for a little bit of a comedic element, every time he sort of gets the upper hand, he's like, put the sunglasses on.
Demonstrating with him about putting the sunnies on. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's pretty good stuff, really.
I loved it. Look, that's probably my final like for me.
Yeah.
It is one of my favourite scenes in the film, no doubt about it.
I actually sort of had the ending. It was a bit of a twist.
It was.
I didn't see it coming.
I did not see it coming.
It sort of shocked me.
I was slightly kind of. I rubbed the chin slightly when he walked in there. They were getting beamed across the fucking solar system or something. I was like, what's this? That
was interesting, but I felt it was just like it didn't overdo it.
No, what it was trying to do was again point out these guys are aliens.
Yeah. But when she walks out with Keith David and Piper goes out first and she just blasts him, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all.
And it was a little sort of social commentary about.
Although
everyone's got their price, sort of like I don't know. It just sort of.
She kind of a bit like someone like your Brad Dourif or whatever. She looks fucking crazy from and she doesn't really have anything else to do.
No, it did take me by surprise. But as you said, when you go back and look at it, she's in it for a limited time, and you sort of think when she turns up and then it gets bombed, there was an inkling, and there was things that kind of put you on that path. But in the moment, it definitely sort of
a little bit. Her shooting him still grabs you, but I just feel. Maybe it's her performance or something, but it just came across as she just always looks shady. Like always. And the lack of time she's there kind of indicated to me that why is she back here suddenly? There's got to be a reason for it.
I actually just, as it was going, I actually just took it as this is a little bit left of centre. It's not mainstream, so he doesn't have a love interest per se.
Yeah.
She didn't have to be there to play that role,
That was one of my first dislikes. The budget was small in comparison to the scope they were going for, which I think that's why the cheapness kind of abounds a little bit.
Like I said before,
crowd scenes, for instance.
I think it works for the most part, but it does. The cheapness does show up a few times. The alien bit that you were talking about, the outer space, and that looks a bit cheap.
Yeah, but also whenever there's big crowds, there's meant to be big crowds. Like the police coming through and tearing up the thing. It looks like five guys walking, it doesn't look convincing.
They were heavily bathed in shadow too, so it was probably the good guys just chucking on a new uniform. And
look, don't get me wrong, you got to cut corners when you're working with a small budget, and I think he does a reasonable job of doing that.
Yep.
But it just doesn't. The scope of the movie feels bigger.
Yeah.
And that's because the ideas are so big. That's what I mean. That's why I think the film is still criminally underrated, is because the ideas are so big.
Yeah.
And a bigger budget could have perhaps realised it a bit in a more epic sort of scale.
Mm-hmm.
And look, don't get me wrong, what he's done the absolute best he can on $4 million, mate.
Yeah.
That's not much.
He definitely got the money's worth out of it.
I said before the effects of the aliens up close look pretty bad.
They're up and down because the design is really cool, and as I said, when it's static, I really enjoyed it. But there is a bit, when they're sort of talking into their,
and the mouth's just sort of flapping.
It looks like one of those bloody skeletons you'd hang up in a science class.
Yeah, marionette or something like that.
Puppeting the bloody jaw. So that is a little bit problematic. That's where you're seeing the seams a little bit there.
Due to his wrestling background, he over-exaggerates his punches a lot, old Piper. So he really loads up.
He throws them like a wrestling match too, like a little sort of hooks them so they come across the front of the face.
He's one step away from sort of hitting the floor like they do, they hit the floor with their feet to indicate the connection.
Yeah, I thought contact. I did notice that. Definitely,
it gets better in the blue in the alley with Keith David.
It definitely wasn't on the level of Thunder in Paradise for me, because he actually throws a clothesline in there too, but it looks a bit more reasonable than the ones that the Hulksters throw.
Like there's one in particular where he fights those two coppers and kills them.
Yeah,
he's really over exaggerating it there.
And that's where he threw the coat hanger in too.
Yeah.
The short sharp.
The one liner obviously about chewing bubblegum and everything is a gem.
Mm.
But there's several others that just don't really work.
There's not as many memorable ones. There's a couple that were, again, I think they came across as perhaps he just sort of dropped them on the spot or put his own sort of spin on them. And sometimes I think it really works for the character, but there isn't anywhere near as memorable as the chew bubblegum.
No. And look, not that they all have to be memorable, but in a way you probably could have lost a couple of them. You didn't need them.
It wasn't really that sort of movie even.
And also he was a man of few words. We didn't, like the kick-ass.
I didn't even know his name. When I first finished watching it, I didn't know his name was Nada.
Well, he wasn't given a name, I don't think. I think it was more you find out at the end that's what it was. But what I mean is the kick-ass and chew bubblegum would have worked perfectly on its own as his only one-liner because he wasn't a talkative cat.
No.
And he was a introvert. So,
but it did I felt it did sort of run with the character a little bit. Like there was parts to that, like when the blind priest sort of grabs him in the church and starts feeling his face and stuff. He's sort of dropping lines kind of like that. He's sort of panicked and trying to put forward these kind of smooth lines to get himself out of it. So it does sort of build the character a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know whether I didn't really see any that I felt were too on the nose that we needed to drop. But
that's kind of it for me because I did point out that I've always felt that there was that feeling that Holly was a bit off.
Yeah,
maybe it sort of folded back around to the end.
In hindsight, that is probably a dislike. That there is very, very little that she actually contributes to, other than the big one at the end. So it's sort of, as you said, it probably telegraphed it a bit.
It does.
The other thing too is, and I don't know, I hesitate to call it a dislike, but being that it was the type of movie that it was, as I said, the plot was really thin. So I kind of would have liked a little bit more for Piper to do at certain points. But having done that, Carpenter probably wouldn't have taken the time he did with scenes like when he first put the glasses on, which in the end are very effective. So it's kind of a catch-22, and maybe if he had have gone down that route, it would have stuffed things up a bit.
Maybe. I think that my biggest gripe is, as I said before, I just feel that there's an epic scope here.
Yeah.
And it didn't get fully fleshed just because I didn't have the money, which is sad.
Yeah, it is.
Because I think there was more to be told there. And it would have been really interesting to see what they could have gone. I don't know if they've done any comic books or novelisations or anything about the series. Because it would have just been really interesting to see where this type of movie could have gone.
Yeah.
So, look, overall, again, I think nostalgia does come back into it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just felt there was a couple of things that I didn't like about it.
Yeah, look, I was a much bigger fan of this one. I think this is closer to his absolute peak stuff than Big Trouble is.
Yeah. Big Trouble's off the tangent slightly.
Yeah, it is a little bit. It's something that he never really dug into very much.
He didn't make action pictures. He didn't make
a little bit of action in Vampires. You loved that one, didn't you?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay, all right.
Because
jumping the gun.
Do we feel we've covered it?
We've covered it, yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back and we're actually going to talk about Carpenter the later years after They Live.
Right.
What has he been up to? Stay tuned for that. All right, so John Carpenter, we all know him. We all know his best work was 70s and 80s, late 70s and into the 80s.
Yep.
Coinciding from the stretch from probably, well, you'd probably throw Precinct 13 in there.
Yeah, that was I thought that
Salt
was
on Precinct 13 through to They Live.
Yeah.
Is probably his peak period.
Some rippers in there.
Some absolute gems in there. And we're talking about Halloween, we're talking about The Thing, and we're talking about lesser films like Big Trouble, Escape from New York, of course. The Fog. There's some lesser films.
Yeah.
But there's still some interesting stuff.
Yeah. I've never come out of watching one of those and thinking, gee, that didn't really entertain me at all.
Yeah.
Like always, even The Fog, it's one of those movies for me that is, I know it's probably a 3 out of 5 tops, but the ideas just get me and I really enjoy them and the visuals and stuff.
I think what Carpenter did really well in that period, in the 70s into the early 80s, so let's go with...
Mustache?
He had a mustache back then.
That's the best thing. Yeah.
That is probably the best thing he did.
Yep.
I don't know, he wasn't a mullet wearer.
No, he didn't have enough on top.
He was a bell-bottoms guy, though, if you look at the making of Halloween.
He looked a bit like Ned Flanders. Halloween time, just a little bit longer hair.
His period, let's say Halloween, The Fog, Halloween 2, The Thing, Escape from New York, there's a real atmosphere to them, to all of them.
Yeah.
And they're all really sort of slow builds.
Yep.
And he does a really good job with all of that. Something like The Thing, I personally believe The Thing's his best picture. I love Halloween. I love Halloween a lot.
Yep.
And they're both 5-star pictures.
Couldn't argue
But
with
The Thing is just really, really impressive because The Thing has got the Halloween style sort of scares mixed with the They Live sort of interesting story.
Yeah.
And the interesting ideas.
I'd probably go with Halloween just for the rest of it. Like the fact that it spawned a series that even though they're shit movies, I did enjoy. So...
well, I guess Halloween's
got... The thing is, I couldn't say that it's a better movie than The Thing. By no means. They're both outstanding. So
I think Halloween is because it sort of started a wave. It created something,
Yeah.
Looking at this list, I think some of this stuff might have created a bowel movement for Johnny
Carpenter. You're about to throw sort of 5 knees to...
Oh, yeah. Well, it looks like he fucking knackered himself. Reading a couple of these. Look, They Live was in 88.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 4-year hiatus. He comes back in 92 with a $40 million budget. Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Do you remember this film?
I do, but I've never watched it.
I've seen it.
Yep.
It was pretty poor. It wasn't really in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. And it's one of those ones, like, it's pretty hard to see now. It's not one of those ones that crops up very often and hasn't shown on our streaming services or anything.
I don't think it's even on iTunes.
Yeah, and it was never one that was, like, nobody said good things about it, really, so I never really sorted it out.
Box office take was a paltry 14 mil. So he loses 26 million on budget, and that doesn't include any advertising money. So he really took a hit on that.
Yep.
But he was back 2 years later with In the Mouth of Madness.
Yep.
Now, this was 94, budget of 8 million, box office take of 8 million.
Yeah.
So he basically made nothing,
Yeah.
but he was leanly budgeted. Sam Neill's in it. It's funny because after 92, like after They Live, he starts working with higher profile actors.
Yeah.
See, Chevy Chase was in Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Sam Neill's in the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah. I had a mate that loved In the Mouth of Madness. Absolutely loved it. Had it as like absolute classic.
It was all about.
For me, it was just not the sort of thing that I go for. It was all,
cerebral sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't have a brain, so don't go for that. It was all sort of twisted around and about this bloke's mental state and things like that. No, it didn't grab me so much. Especially given that, the previous stuff that I'd liked from Carpenter was very different to that.
Yeah. Well, look, I haven't seen it in a long, long time, but...
Not rushing back?
Nah. It was nothing that really jumped out at me.
Yeah.
It was interesting because when I was looking through the 90s, for some reason I thought Prince of Darkness was in there. But it was in the 80s.
Was it
it was might have been in between Big Trouble and They Live.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well received that was.
No.
Maybe that was where things started to slip a little.
A little bit.
He started to show that, well, in a way, not to, I love it, but I think Big Trouble might have been where he went away from what he was good at. And he took an option that wasn't quite there. It wasn't really in his wheelhouse, and it sort of, things started to slip away from him. Like, to me, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, I'm kind of baffled by what he saw in that.
Dollars?
I think so.
Everyone needs to cash a cheque occasionally, mate.
Mate, he had mortgage payments.
Yeah.
1995, so he went back-to-back years. Village of the Damned, the remake.
Yep. I actually didn't mind that one.
Yeah, that was all right. Because that took him back into that...
That was a TV movie, wasn't it?
No. The $22 million budget made $9 million at the box office.
Maybe it was a TV movie over here.
Maybe. After his paltry box office.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I actually didn't mind.
I actually liked it because it brought back some of that paranoia and things like that. Small town with Stephen King style, something under the surface.
Definitely had normal. A bit of Stephen King to it.
He comes back in 96. Escape from LA. His first sequel budgeted at $50 million.
Yeah. You reckon They Live looks cheap? Oof. For the money.
What did he do with the $50 million?
I don't know.
It's not a good movie.
What about the basketball scene?
Oh, God. And there's a surfing scene as well.
There's a surfing scene.
Fuck.
He hits a half-court shot.
He does?
Easily.
Of course, he's Snake
Plissken.
I think this is a big mistake. I think this is the one he should not have done.
Look, I'm not so down on that. I think after Escape from New York, there was
room for a sequel.
There was definitely room. It just looks so far removed from the other one.
Isn't it sort of kind of like a quasi remake of Escape from New York? Similar sort of setup?
Sort of. Like, the setup's pretty similar, but it's just, it just looks really bad. That was my biggest problem. It just looked like a whole different world that he'd sort of than what he created with Escape from New York. And
remember though, it was right in the meat of the 90s.
Yeah,
CGI was rampant.
Yes, it looks like an episode of Thunder in Paradise. Unfortunately,
money was being thrown around willy nilly on properties that probably shouldn't have been being considered.
Yeah,
in my mind,
see,
his two biggest budgeted films are the two he probably should have thought twice about.
Well, see, I disagree on this one. The other one, yes, but this one, I mean, that's what we wanted, really. We wanted that same sort of stuff. And
I guess we did.
And I mean, if it had have been Escape from LA and the same sort of movie, that still could have worked.
It could have.
It could have just been, a sequel that was...
it made $25 million at the box office.
But yeah, it's too different for mine.
He followed that up in 98 with Vampires.
Loved it.
Budget of $20 million. You preferred the
I actually
sequel,
remember-
Vampires Lost Boy?
Yeah, I think I did watch
John
that
Bon
too.
Jovi, I believe.
Yeah, the wrong John turned up for that one. I did see. I saw that at the cinemas. I saw Vampires at the cinemas.
$20 million budget, $20 million box office.
At the time, I didn't really dislike it that much, but I haven't seen it again since. I haven't seen it since I first saw it.
My recollections of Vampires is basically it would be
Subpar.
it would have been direct to video if James Woods hadn't been in it.
Yep.
Because James Woods does what he always does.
It had
performance.
It was one of the fourth or fifth Baldwin brothers.
I think it was the ugly Baldwin. But James Woods gives a really good performance, as he always does, and probably carries it a little bit.
Yep.
Above
if John Bon Jovi had been in it, made it 100 million, mate.
He was in the sequel.
You reckon he was sleeping too? His backside was sagging by the late 90s. He couldn't get the leather pants on anymore.
His leather pants were holding his backside in place. Ghosts of Mars.
I've seen
2001.
I've seen portions of this.
$28 million budget.
Yeah, I couldn't sit through it. I didn't really know what was going on.
Made a box office take of $8 million.
Yeah, I've tried to watch it once and turned it off.
It was trash. I remember going to the cinema. Fuck, what was I doing? that was Movie Max card.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
I was going to see everything, but
yeah, you still
Ghosts of Mars was bad. It was really bad, and again, it just sort of once
you
again.
should have seen Vampires at the cinemas, mate.
Yeah.
Much better.
What you're saying to me is in 1998 it was okay to see Vampires, but in 2001 it wasn't okay to see Ghosts of Mars.
Exactly.
Again, Ghosts of Mars, $28 million budget. Again, it must have been cash and checks. Because...
But then, I mean, at that time, 28 million's probably in line with, your
10
or 15 from when he was doing it in the 80s. Like, yeah,
I guess from my perspective is, once again, Ghosts of Mars again felt like...
I read the title and decided against that one at the cinemas.
you were sick of Mars films?
Yeah. Look, if it had said Vampires from Mars, I probably would have skipped that too. But it just said Vampires.
You would have gone, oh, was that a sequel to Vampires?
I think I saw Dracula 2000 at the cinemas around the same time.
God! You didn't, did you?
I think so.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I am, slightly.
Bloody hell.
I'm ashamed yet.
You're lying
by my own.
You're lying to secret to me about Ghosts of Mars, and you tell it that you voluntarily advised us to went and saw Dracula 2000.
Shit. I still maintain the Judas Twist was pretty good.
I decided, look, I'm no better. I went and saw that the sequel to Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, Queen of the Damned.
That's it.
You idiot. God. Not even I. They couldn't even get me to that one.
I got you to Vampires and Dracula 2000. You didn't feel you could go for a 3.
Yeah, I couldn't do Queen of the Damned.
Bad things come in 3, so I decided to skip all that and go to just one.
I'd learn my lesson, mate.
Queen of the Damned. Oh, my God. Why? Fucking hell, I must have been like hungover or something. Basically, from 2001 to 2005, 2006, John Carpenter did no films. He directed 2 episodes of Masters of Horror.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you have that?
I had one of them.
Was it any good?
Loaned to me by a mate.
You still got it?
No. He thought
you turned up your ass.
No, I did return that one, as far as I know. I actually...
what were they like? One of them was called Cigarette Burns.
I had Cigarette Burns was the one that he gave me, and I don't even remember it. I think I did watch it, but I can't remember it. So
there wasn't a lot there.
It's not something that, probably not the top of his pile.
Then 2006 to 2010, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Until The Ward.
Yep.
Which was budgeted at $10 million and I believe went direct to DVD, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It had Amber Heard.
I think I caught it on pay TV.
It may have sat on the shelf for a while too.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be getting it mixed up with that other one that Amber Heard was in that was on the shelf for like 5 years. It was a slasher film. Mandy Lane, yeah. All the boys love Mandy Lane. So basically, John Carpenter in the last 15 years, has made 2 films.
Yeah.
And directed 2 TV episodes.
Yep.
And has basically been making music.
Which is probably better than The Ward. The Ward was dreadful. I didn't like it at all. Yeah.
And then he's also been cashing in on being an executive producer on all his remade properties.
He's hit that stage of his life where he doesn't... Well, maybe he was always there, but I've read some interviews with him lately where he's very open and very honest in his opinions on things, which is good.
One thing I will give him, he does a lot of commentaries on his DVDs.
Yeah.
He's done numerous on Halloween. He's done several. I think he's done a major one on The Thing with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And they also did one, Big Trouble. They also did one on Escape from New York.
What about Elvis?
Don't think they covered Elvis. So he's always good on that front. Look, I think he summed it up. He's old. He probably got back into his music. I think he realised that if you don't... create your own sort of film that you're passionate about, it's not worth doing.
Well, he's getting raves for his music.
Yeah, well, his music's good stuff, mate. It's good stuff.
Yeah, he's been very well received.
Look, it's good to see him back in the Halloween franchise for this new version. He also, I believe, was approached to do Halloween 4.
Yeah.
He was the one who came up with Jason in Space. If I'm not mistaken.
Michael in Space,
sorry.
Yeah, they made a gag about it in part 6, wasn't it? Well, part 6 was the one where he pitched that idea and then they made a joke about it on the radio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They'd forgotten that the joke was currently being unspooled in front of them.
Hey, mate, Michael should have got there first.
Ahead of Jason
thrived in space.
No, he didn't.
Absolutely thrived.
No, he didn't. But... Look, it's good to see him back in the Halloween franchise, but overall, I don't think we'll see a lot from him.
No,
filmmaking wise,
I don't think there's much left there. I'd like to see Netflix throw a bit of cash at him and see what he could produce, or
maybe give him some money to sort of whip out a smaller...
You're a little bit worried about their debt currently, aren't you?
They're $25 billion in debt. I don't understand the business model.
The business model is
spend money to not make any.
No, it's spend money now to make a shitload of original content that you then cash in on merchandising for years to come.
Yeah, maybe.
A la Stranger Things.
Just on a side note, I see Disney's going to put out their own streaming service 2019.
Yes.
And basically then they're also going to put out an ESPN streaming service because they own ESPN. That's a side note. Got nothing to do with John Carpenter. You'll be fucking Netflix, streaming everything.
Disney, Foxtel. There'll be something else on there. There is something else that's already coming out. The DC's they're doing their own one.
Are they?
So, yeah.
God almighty.
I'll have to pick and choose, I think.
All right. Well,
Stan, go on.
It was a quick sort of overview of John Carpenter's later work, not a patch on his original work.
No,
not even close. To me, They Live and Big Trouble, I love them both.
Yeah,
but they're not on par with that stuff.
Yeah,
that was the start of the decline. So anything in the 90s is not even close to They Live.
No,
They Live's a step above.
Yep.
So it's really interesting to see the trajectory of his career. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Ali again for bringing up both of these pictures, and we really enjoyed checking them out and looking back on them. If you want to get in touch with us, send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. Like us on Facebook, Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or on Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. Next episode, keep an eye on our Facebook page and we'll let you know what we're going to cover. Hopefully Gibbo will return.
Yes.
It'll probably be his pick. But until then, take it easy. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia, or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.